Ammo is crazy expensive and hard to find, and dry fire is life. I use the Mantis X10 to keep my handgun skills strong, and it makes dry practice fun and challenging. Check it out at the link below.
Hello everyone, Brian Hill with the Complete Combatant. This is your Mantis Dry Fire Mondays, and welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Well, I'm dressed differently than I usually am. Okay, I usually have an untucked shirt concealing my appendix. Usually don't have a big holster on my side here, but today we're going to do some comparison between draw styles. Okay, and listen, in jiu-jitsu, I'm wearing my jiu-jitsu shirt today, we always tell students to look for the similarities between techniques because it's an incredibly complex system of fighting. If you haven't read Bobby Fischer's book on chess, he talks about looking for the similar moves between two pieces of chess players, how they move over and over again. And it's the same thing for a draw. There's a lot more similarities than there is differences. But we tend to choose one side or the other. I'm going to tell you this. I started out strong side, first pistol in the 80s. Carried when I was Fulton County Sheriff's Department Reserve in this position, and most of my adult life was on the strong side. Now, how did I end up in appendix? Well, I injured my shoulder. I couldn't drive my arm back here. I hurt my shoulder training, so I could only go right here, and I had to change to appendix. It wasn't easy. I didn't like it. I had 30 years of programming to overcome. But now I love it because I found some benefits. I think drawing from appendix is less injurious in the long run. But there's also some downsides. Critics rightly point out that you can't always carry appendix because you have to have what? Your shirt untucked to cover the gun. There are times in my life where I have to go to a special event or worse, even a funeral or something like that, that I have to wear a suit and tie. Sometimes I give speeches at companies and it's not really a permissive environment. I don't want them seeing that I have a pistol on. So I can't really do it here. Even though I have tuckable holsters, to stand in front of 200 people and give a speech and not know if that gun is completely concealed is a difficult task. So sometimes I wear a sports jacket to do it. I have a good holster for it. I have a good setup, and that's how I work it. I also like to compete. IDPA requires strong side only. They don't allow appendix at all, and they've been pretty serious about their comments on that lately. They're never going to allow appendix. Okay, and then USPSA has a lot of divisions. We can go from appendix in the open and the limited, but if carry optics is on the strong side. So since I do shoot an optic, I found it's here. And you know what, the draw position doesn't matter nearly as much in competition because we're only talking about, if you have 8 stages, at most 8 draws, sometimes less because you might have a table start or a box start. So why do I have both? I teach classes, and as an instructor, it's my job to bridge the knowledge to you. It's not your job to become like me. And I think if instructors do that more, they're going to find a big difference in their teaching skills. So I have a setup here where I can have an appendix and a strong side. I tried to do both inside the waist, and it's god-awful uncomfortable. I probably have to buy size 40 waistband pants to do it, and then I have to buy a whole bunch of those to teach in. So this is the way I've set it up. I've got the Filster Floodlight Division holster here that really grips around the light, so it allows me to put it in 2 different positions. And then if I'm running rifle class, I tend to run the gun over here because having a rifle bounce off your appendix rig all day is not optimal. It's very suboptimal. If you wear a plate carrier, it's even harder. Then I even have a little different type of holster. So if my environment changes, I have to change with it. And I need to be able to teach both because it happens in my class. So let's get the really important stuff out of the way. Is the gun safe? All right, I'm going to check it real quick. So we got the tap rack train there. Okay, lock the gun open, physically and visually verified it a couple times. Have the audience do so. We're all set. Mantis on the bottom, and we're good to go. Rack the gun. Everything's good. Run the decocker. Put my thumb over the hammer so it couldn't fire even if it wanted to, and then I'm going to put it back in the holster. I don't know if you noticed I moved my right leg in so it was out of the way as I'm putting the gun away. It's a habit I'm in. I like people to move their foot out of the way as they bring the gun back to position instead of swinging it wide around them. So let's talk about this draw. If I had an open garment on that, it's like a jacket that's unzipped, what I'd simply do is I rip that out of the way and get to the gun. Okay? If I have appendix, my shirt would be untucked. What I simply do is pull that up and get to the gun. All right? If I was carrying strong side and it was covered, I reach over here, I move the garment out of the way, I get to the gun. Now there's a ranking to these. I think appendix is the fastest. nobody runs appendix in the open. It might be a tenth faster, but since this hand has nothing to do anyway, it doesn't tend to get in the way, so that may be just pure conjecture on my part. I don't really know because I can't run an open appendix. But from concealment, I find it just as fast as an open holster. Now, that's me. My appendix draw gets a lot more practice than my strong side draw. So appendix should be a little bit better. You'll find the same thing. Whichever one you prefer, which means you habituate, will always be better than the other one. Okay? But these two are pretty even. Really not a lot of difference. Maybe a tenth. Maybe a tenth. Then when I put a jacket on and cleared, I add another tenth to it. So now we're starting to get a difference, maybe of 2/10. So it's a little faster, but that's a good position. Of course, the problem is you can't always walk around with an open jacket. If you live in the South like I do, you'll have to walk around with an open shirt. You'll have to weight the shirt. Every shirt's going to work a little differently. So there's a problem there too. It's all a compromise. And then the slowest of all is inside the waist with a closed shirt over it. It is just significantly slower because we have to reach, we have to pull the gun up, we have to grab the gun and get it out of there. At least 0.3, more like 0.4 or 0.5. People prefer that though because they feel like it conceals better. But I would suggest that you do this. Either have someone stand behind you and take a picture, have you standing up and have you bend over a little bit and see how well that gun's concealed, or do it in the mirror. Mostly it's concealed from you. It's not concealed from other people because you just can't see it. It feels like it's stuck back behind you, so it's easier for you not to see what's going on back there. Nothing past 330, guys. Nothing past 330. It's just too far back. It's too hard to get to. It's really hard on the shoulder, okay? And it's very easy to stop that draw. So about 3 to 330 would be as far back as you want to go. All right, let's talk about what the same things are, okay? This part of the draw right here is exactly the same. This doesn't really change whether I go from here or I go from here. The entrance to that is slightly different, and the hands have a different responsibility, but it's very much the same thing. So when I'm in this position and I'm bringing the gun to here and out, that's all the same. So that's similar. So now we're only talking about this much. From my hands here to here, or my hands here to here. They have a different organization. Okay? If we start with a hands down position like this, this hand comes to the solar plexus, this hand stabs on the gun, 3 fingers grip, thumbs outside. As soon as the gun clears, the elbow drops, the other hand comes in, gets under the dominant eye, see the red dot, gently press the trigger to the rear. Finger comes off and comes back. Now, I'm just going to move my foot in, and the good thing with this holster is I can see the ground and I can push it down. Now my hand's over the thumb, over the hammer, so there's no way this can fire. So that's one reason I like to carry a hammer-fired gun. If you got a Glock, you can put a gadget on it. Okay, so let's look at it again. If I'm clearing a cover garment, this hand's coming here, clearing, grabbing, elbow drops, hand comes in, supports, and drives straight underneath the eye. And then I'll see that red dot right at the end of that. So I bring it back, I bring the foot in, put my thumb over the hammer, and put it back in the holster. Okay. So that's our strong side. So really the only difference is it's coming from here and moving here. If you have a Mantis, you're going to see that on your graph. Look at your graph for the motion of it. Now, what I'm going to do is put it back in the appendix position. Okay? If it was concealed and I started from here, this hand would go to the belly button, move the concealment, this hand would stab down, both hands would come together, and now everything's the same, and gently press the trigger to the rear. When I go back, I'm going to keep the feet wide apart. Instead of narrowing them, push my hips out and put it back in there. Thumbs over the hammer, and then I can see in the holster, and everything's good, then drop it down. So, very similar. The big difference is right here, where my elbow would just drop this way, and the muzzle would line up outside the target. My elbow is going to drop this way, bringing it to the center line of my eye. And then I'm going to drive it straight back out, bring it back to position, thumb over the hammer, wide stance, hips out, and put it back in there. So that's the difference, and that's the difference. That's a pretty small difference. I'm at 12:30 and 3 o'clock right now. I'm at almost 2:30. It starts to sneak around because it's a little faster in that position. So almost the same thing each time. My thumb does the same thing no matter what. It's always to the outside of the gun like this. So if I'm drawing appendix, it's right here, because if it's down, I have to move it, put the other hand in. So I just keep it out of the way. And if it's in this position, like this, it's right here, and my thumb just goes on the back, and then it comes together when it's in position. So not much difference. Now, if it's inside the waist, like this, I'm going to do the same thing. My thumb's just going to be to the outside, and that gives us a good control. Remember to stab the web of your hand right in there, get a good push up of flesh, and then drive the elbow down, and that gets the gun to come straight out. Same thing here. I'm not going to get the web of flesh because it's tighter to my body, so I'm just going to get it on the back, and then as I drive the gun, and it comes straight to the target. So pretty easy. Things to think about. Appendix, open holster, the fastest. I'm just telling you my numbers. 0.8 from here, from concealment, 0.9 from here. Sometimes 0.8, sometimes 0.7 on this one. Okay. Once I add concealment, this one goes to about a 1 to a 0.9. Sometimes it's very close, just getting to it. This one's at a 0.8. All right. And then once I decide to put it inside my waist, but with an open garment, I had another 1/10 of a second because I don't get quite the same grip on it. It takes me a little longer to get the grip. Remember, there should be lots of space inside the waist so your fingers can fit in there. That's another thing that makes it not hide as well. Okay? You're always going to be fighting whether is the gun in deep enough to hide or if it's high enough to draw. And then, of course, the slowest one is covered, draw, pull the gun out, and drive. For me, I just don't ever do that one. There's no reason. If my shirt was untucked, I'd carry appendix. Makes it easy, you know? So always going to be some sacrifice on each side. You're going to have to make some compromises, and you can practice both of these. If you decide to carry in a different place for that day, I'd suggest before you go out, get 20 or 30 draws and acclimate yourself to it. There have been many fine gunfighters in the history of gunfighting that carried multiple guns on them and were able to draw them from different positions. You can too. Don't buy into this that you're fixed forever. Once you do this, you can't do the other thing, and under pressure, you're always going to fall back to that. In jiu-jitsu, I do a lot of different things well. All right, because once I get the basics down, then I can simply change. Sometimes I throw triangles, sometimes I throw arm bars, sometimes I do kimuras, sometimes I ride the back and get rear naked chokes, sometimes I do leg locks. It just doesn't matter. I do what's available to me, and I practice it so I don't think about it. When the opportunity's there, I do it. Same thing with draws. Just practice these motions and see how similar they are, and then you'll be able to do a great job with it. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to work with y'all. Leave your questions. Remember, subscribe. Hit the like button. This is Active Self-Protection Extra. Thank you, Mantis. The holster draw analysis is going to help you guys tremendously. Look at the difference in the grip and the pulling action between the appendix and the strong side, and you'll see the numbers I'm talking about. If you don't have one, you guys need to get one. The holster draw analysis is to the first press of the trigger, and that really gives you something that no other system can give you. So I highly recommend it. All right, and as always at the Complete Combatant, measure, refine, and perform.